to order. Thank you, Maria. I will call to order the February 3rd meeting of the Finance Committee of the Town of Nantucket. And so the script for remotely conducted open meetings. Members of the public wishing to participate at the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair of the Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative in the order in which I see you. So that would be Peter Schaefer.
Aye.
Stephen Morey.
Here.
Jill Veith.
Here.
George Harrington. George is slowly connecting to audio. Chris Glowacki.
Fleets fund without ever seeing.
Chris Glowacki.
Sure.
Thank you. Let me go to screen 2 because now we're up to screen 2. Okay, that's good. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. And as there are several folks on the call today that are here for the budget presentation for the school committee, I am actually not going to call all your names. So I will just go to Maria. I'll do roll call with you.
Here.
Thank you, Brian.
Present, Madam Chair. One moment before you do keep going, Madam Chair, could we ask whoever MM's iPad is to change that to your first and last name, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
I was going to get there, but thanks for beating me to it, Brian. Okay, and Terry.
I'm here.
Thank you. Rick.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Finance Committee meeting is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website. And in turning to the first item of the agenda, I will cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will ask them, the members if they have any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. In addition, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And one last administrative item that I have to announce. I'm the only one home today, so if my dog needs to go out, he needs to go out that minute. He doesn't need to go out at 6 o'clock. So my screen will go dark and Stephen will step in and be chair while I am outside with my dog. So thank you. So I didn't get to explain that last time. All right, may I have an approval of the agenda, please?
Move approval.
May I have a second, please? Thank you. By roll call, Jill?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Okay, I've got
Second.
I gotta go to the second screen. I'm on the second screen, losing everybody. George?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
And I think and Denise, aye. Okay, that's the agenda. Perfect. Okay, I am now opening the meeting for public comment for any item that is not on the agenda. And to do so, please raise your electronic hand. No electronic hand. I'm closing the public comment. Thank you. Are there any hi, Joanna. Are there any changes to the minutes from the 27th of January? Seeing none from the Finance Committee members, may I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a
Second.
second? Thank you. Roll call, Stephen,
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna. George.
Aye.
Thank you. And okay, good. All right. So the first item on the agenda today is the discussion of Article 38, appropriate 300,000 to purchase a shredder for solid waste, recycle, and MRF. And the article sponsor, Cliff Williams, is here. So Cliff, why don't you introduce this article and the intention of it to the Finance Committee, please?
Essentially, it's to add to last year's incinerator gasifier article that passed at town meeting. I've done a lot of research, and essentially, if you're going to burn the trash, household trash, in the incinerator or gasifier, it needs to be shredded first, probably dried a little bit. So this shredded also does C&D, which is a fantastic way to maybe do different things at the landfill versus maybe you have C&D, we put it in a truck, we take it to the landfill, we dump it out of the truck, then we put it back in another truck, and then we take it off island. And this thing, and I'm just throwing that one out there besides the gasifier incinerator, is you can take it right to the site, shred the C&D, the building right to the back of the truck, go weigh it, and then take it to the boat, take it off island. So I think there's multiple uses for it, but I'm just trying to get the appropriation because the dump contract is running out, and the way things work in our government is you can't just get an appropriation today. You've got to probably wait a year. So I'm just trying to move forward and hopefully get more aggressive with an overall plan that I want for the landfill. And we'll see that going forward, hopefully next year. I've been just terribly busy, but that's what it's all about, is just to get an appropriation, and we don't have to go buy one this year, but get the appropriation in.
Thank you, Cliff. Peter?
Yeah, Cliff, the piece that was approved last year, can it work without the shredder at all?
It was just for an incinerator or a gasifier, and I mean, I've talked to Sierra Energy, and they basically shred the trash or whatever they're going to gasify before it goes into the gasifier or incinerator, because it also has to do with the moisture content in the product. So you just don't dump a bulk thing. So it doesn't come with any kind of shredder, if that's what you're asking, the other appropriation.
Well, did we buy a printer without the ink?
No, I don't think those incinerators or gasifiers come with a shredder. Is that what I'm-
No. If you can't use them without a shredder, why wasn't this discussed before we bought them?
I don't know. I mean, I've looked into this more and more, and I guess that's just part of it. I mean, it's been an ongoing discussion that I've had personally. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't had the Board of Selectmen reach out to me, or town administration reach out to me, and or Julian Sear or anybody else, because this thing also, the incinerator or gasifier also has to be permitted. So that's why I think I've just stated I'm going to get more aggressive with the whole overall operation. And then we have to make a decision. I mean, do we still want to do the compost? I think that was a big mistake. Maybe in 1980s, somebody thought composting was going to be some great idea, but it's just, I think it's a huge waste of resources, and it's still a byproduct that we have to get rid of, and we would just dump it in the landfill, and it just creates more methane gas. So I think this is the direction to go in.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Other questions from the Finance Committee? I saw Jill first and then Joe. Jill, go ahead.
Cliff, how much C&D gets sent off island versus how much stays on island? I've never gotten an answer to that. I've asked a lot of people.
You know, I had all those numbers right in front of me, but all the C&D goes off island. I don't believe we bury any C&D. We're not supposed to bury anything, really. I mean, I think we bury some of the byproduct from the composter, and we really shouldn't even be doing that.
But how much of that do you think is of our trash or waste?
That is the compost is the trash.
No, I mean, that's everything. but I'm talking like, all the waste from tearing down houses and, is your incinerator going to be able to take all of that?
No, we're not going to burn the C&D with the incinerator. This is just for the household trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, the C&D is going to be still taken off island. Or if they come up with a incinerator that can burn the C&D, I mean, it'd be a nice way to also take that and add it to a steam, you generate steam and you can make electricity. So we can make electricity at the landfill.
Okay. All right. So thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Joe?
Yeah, hey, Cliff, you still work at the airport, right? Is that your primary occupation? Like, do you still build houses and things too?
Yes, I do. I just bought another subdivision in New Hampshire.
I mean, I appreciate your taking the effort to help the island out with both these things, but you're not a civil engineer or a waste engineer or right? This is purely personal interest that has led you to make these or suggest these articles, correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, I've worked with, I shouldn't say worked with, I've been in contact with Sierra Energy probably for about 3 years. And they've been working through Bill Gates and a bunch of other individuals have donated a lot of money, and they're working with the U.S. military because especially when we go overseas, we're not supposed to leave our trash behind. And the old process of dumping it off the side of a ship was outlawed. So the U.S. military's got a lot of interest in this gasification, incineration. So that's what they've been doing with all our trash when we're deployed. So no, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm none of those things. I'm in contact with these people that are getting rid of trash and burning it.
But don't you think it's kind of a big risk for that? I mean, I understand that the town meeting approved the article for the gasifier, which blew my mind. But I mean, all due respect, I don't understand why. Don't you think the town takes a big risk to make these kind of investments on the interest of a citizen who's not particularly expert in them?
Yeah, I'm not claiming myself an expert. I'm trying to get the appropriations so we can maybe hire those experts. Like I said, Sierra Energy's been, every time I talk to them, they're doing more and more. And those people burn tires, they burn trash, they burn C&D, or should say gasify it. So you're right. That's why I made the comment that I need to get more aggressive and to get a team together, I guess, people that, if I needed brain surgery, I wouldn't do brain surgery myself. I'd hire a brain surgeon. So I'm not an expert on landfills, but we need to do something, and we need to get an appropriations, at least in line, if we go in that direction, because the dump contract is running out. And the last DPW director said we should wait. At least that's like the last comment I got from him was we're going to wait till the contract runs out and then decide what was going to happen. But my late father-in-law was on the committee for the landfill probably in the 70s. So that was 50 years ago, and we still haven't figured out what we're doing with the landfill. So I'm just trying to, like I said, concerned citizen. I ran on as a selectman on that format of trying to do something with the landfill. I just don't know where we're headed. I think we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we don't give ourselves some options.
Okay. Well, thanks, Cliff. I appreciate your civic interest. I'm just call me a skeptic. So.
Thank you, Joe. Other questions for Cliff? Joanna?
I guess my question, Cliff, is how does the gasifier that got approved at last year's meeting, how does it fit into the town plan, right? At all, right? Like how like have you been like solid waste department? Have they been looking at how they're going to integrate this, right? Okay, yes, they got voted. Like, so does it go out to bid? Like, what are the next steps, and how does it work in conjunction? Because have we encumbered the money, right? Like, how does this move forward at all? You're muted.
Yeah, trying to get off. Well, that's a great point when you say the town's plan. Do you have one of the town's plans? Because I'd love to see it. I don't know of any plan. Like I said, the DPW director said we were going to wait till the contract ran out and figure where we're headed. And like I said, I've been around long enough to know we've been trying to figure out what we're gonna do with the trash for 50 years. So
Mhm.
I think that I've talked to, different people that handle C&D and waste around the island, and they think we should just burn it. I mean, we used to burn it when I was a kid, but obviously we just burned it in the hole. But we have to, something that's more obviously an incinerator or a gasifier. So that's what I'm looking to do, and hopefully I can get you some more answers and better answers, and get like I said, a team together that can really give us a good direction. And if we don't want to do that, I don't know where the town is going. I haven't heard a plan from them.
Libby, you have your hand up, please.
Thank you. To be clear about what happened at the 2021 annual town meeting, what was actually approved was there was a finance committee motion not to adopt with a comment and a select board comment. The motion was amended by Clifford at town meeting to recommend pursuing incineration at the landfill. There was no appropriation associated with that. We have been working quite constantly and consistently on solid waste planning at the landfill. We have a workshop actually this coming Monday on February 7th at 4 o'clock. It's on Zoom and anybody is free to join it. It's a continuation of a series of workshops that we've actually had. They're all public. There is some information on the website. It may need to be a little bit updated, but we most certainly have experts and consultants, and a lot of research is underway. We do have our solid waste consultant, George Aronson, present, and our recycling coordinator, Graham Dervich, present, and they are both quite knowledgeable about some of the technology that's out there. The technology changes quite a bit. Incineration is actually not permittable right now in Massachusetts. So that would be quite a huge hurdle to overcome, especially in an environmentally sensitive place like Nantucket. And we've got a lot of issues with landfill closure and waste reduction and PFAS and lots of things that incineration and shredders are not going to really address. And I'm sure that George and Graham can answer any technical questions that people have.
Thank you, Libby. George, would you mind giving us a brief whistle-stop tour about whether this fits in what Nantucket has been doing and in the upcoming change or renewal of contract for our solid waste disposal?
Sure. George Aronson. I'm not an island resident for 29 Village Street, Sharon, Mass, and consultant to the town. Few things have been going on for a while. As town manager pointed out, incineration is right now subject to a permitting moratorium in Massachusetts, so that's not something that could go forward. In fact, that's been the case since 1990. However, there is interest in a number of new technologies, including gasification. And the town's been moving forward on a number of fronts to investigate what to do on all of them. I guess the first question, and some of this will come up on the workshop on Monday. We're looking at some source and waste reduction programs. We're looking at how to improve diversion through additional recycling through a couple of programs there. To the extent there's leftovers, we're looking at the compost itself and whether that's the way to continue beyond 2025 with some changes that both the technology and the way material is fed to that. And we're also looking for those materials that are not compostable at both gasification and pyrolysis technologies. The town issued a request for expression of interest, got responses from 12 vendors, evaluated those proposals, used that as a basis for a next step. The town is now shipping material off island from pilot programs at a number of facilities. And I'm sure the vendor mentioned by Mr. Williams was interested in participating in the program. We'd be happy to accommodate that. So there are a number of initiatives going on simultaneously. Where this is going to lead, there's still some big decisions to be made in 2022 and 2023, so we can make the deadline for November 30th, 2025 at the end of the contract. That being said, a shredder on and by itself, and I think Mr. Williams would agree with that, it needs to be considered as part of a system, and we need a little more information as what that best system would be. if you're just shredding trash, it makes it very difficult to recycle what you come with. And again, construction demolition waste cannot go in the landfill under the waste ban provisions of the Mass DEP. So we have a lot of initiatives underway. I think somebody made the comment earlier, it's not clear how a shredder would fit, be integrated with the other systems. Gasification is in fact one of the things being considered as we go forward. And you know, I think there is a lot of information that maybe it would be best to discuss offline to move the process forward. So hopefully that's helpful in giving some context.
Thank you, George. Graham, do you want to add anything to what George has just said, please?
Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair. George pretty much covered it. Again, I welcome, you know, anyone who's interested in this to reach out, come to the workshops. George and I are very available to respond to, you know, people's concerns and to listen to them so we can figure out what's going forward. But really, we're posing this to the select board as they are the decision makers for our community in large part. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks for being here. Okay, Finance Committee, any other questions? Seeing shaking of head, no. I'm going to close the public comment part of this discussion so we can move on to deliberation. And I am looking to the Finance Committee to say, do you have enough information to make a recommendation and discuss it and vote based on what you've heard? Can I have a thumbs up on that so I can see if you are ready to move to motion on this or move to discussion of a motion or recommendation? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm opening the floor to a potential motion and discussion of such.
I move not to adopt.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second for discussion?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just, only to say, I mean, I appreciate Cliff's civic interest. He has always been, you know, he's a former member of the FinCom. I know he loves the town and works very hard, but you know, the town has lots of people getting paid a lot of money who are expert in this field. And I think Cliff's article is just an extraneous issue that diverts time and resources. So I'm against it. Sorry, Cliff.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments or observations, or shall we go to a vote? Seeing no hands raised, I will go. So the motion is motion not to adopt, and I'll start with in the order in which I see you. Peter Schaefer.
Motion not to adopt. Aye.
Okay, Stephen.
Aye.
You're a little hard to see today, everyone. Jill.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris.
Aye.
Joanna. Joanna.
Aye.
Did I miss Joe? There we go.
Aye.
Okay, Denise, aye. It's unanimous. Motion not to adopt. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Graham and George.
Denise, did you remember George? Did he vote?
Oh, sorry, George. You're right. Thank you, Joanna. I've got two screens today, so I'm not as screen savvy as normal. George.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Joanna. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. The next agenda item is discussion and review of the fiscal year 2023 school budget. And I will turn it first over to Brian, or do you want me to turn it over to Dr. Hallett, Brian?
I'm muted. You can start with Dr. Hallett. That's fine, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Hallett. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to share
May
my
I
screen.
interrupt really quickly?
Yes, please.
There is a lot of background noise. Somebody else is talking. So if everybody who's not talking could mute, I could hear you.
Yeah, so I can tell you who's not muted. Dr. Lepre, you're not muted. Maureen Phillips, not muted. This is kind of sounds a little bit like name and shame here. Everybody else is now muted. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm going to share my screen so you all have a chance to see our presentation. So I'm going to do that right now. And just let me know that you can see that. Yes? Okay, great. So good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us today. Martin Engelov, the CFO of the school district, and I are very glad to share with the Nantucket Public Schools, the Nantucket Public Schools budget development for 2022 and 2023. I want to begin by thanking the district leadership team, many of whom are here at this meeting, as they all participated in the budget process by evaluating their needs and keeping the budget recommendations in mind. I feel that it is always a bit of a challenge to try and predict what we will need after July 1st, 2022, when we are just barely at the halfway mark in our school year. But I do hope that this presentation does provide an accurate and clear account of where we are now and what we hope to accomplish in the next school year. I also want to add that every discussion and decision about this budget reflects our new core values, mission, and vision for the district, and always keeps what is best for students at the center. So this slide shows our enrollment summary from 2011 to a projection for 2023. As you can see, the enrollment has evened out over the last 6 years. Perhaps this is attributed to the rising cost of living or the pandemic, but we are pleased to see things quieting down a little bit. This slide shows historical enrollment for the district over the last 21 years. Aside from the steady growth in numbers throughout the first 16 years, it is also worth noticing that the change in our subgroup data has happened around race. In 2001, approximately 93% of our students were white and 7% were Hispanic, African American, or other ethnicities. But fast forward to 2021, and we see that the tables have turned, and the majority of our students, approximately 52%, are children of color, with our second largest subgroup as Hispanic at 36%. So this is important information to consider in that we have seen a substantial shift in our clientele, so to speak, and we really must adapt to their needs going forward. This slide shows our English language learner population, and you will see from the numbers here, it has almost tripled over the last 10 years. Interesting to note, but not surprising, is that the largest number of students has always been at the Nantucket Elementary School. This can be explained by the fact that the students' language proficiency grows very quickly at the youngest grades, and a lot of programming has been put in place in the earliest years of education. So therefore, many students do not need ESL support by the time they reach 3rd grade and are able to be successful in all mainstream classes. We are projecting continued growth for this year, and therefore having important implications on what the needs of these students are. This slide shows our special education population over the last 10 years with a projection for 22-23. You will see that there is an upward growth in our special education population as more students present significant needs and therefore require a larger variety of special services. As we do each year, we look carefully at the specific needs of our students in order to determine how to apply the appropriate supports for them to succeed. We are always looking to reduce the number of our district, of our out of district students, and try to provide appropriate programming for them to keep them at home on the island with their families if we can. And because it's challenging if we have to send them off island, we want to try to keep families together. And I'm going to turn this over to Martin, who will take us through some of the next few slides.
Good evening. As we do every year, we start FY23 budget based on the current year's budget, which is FY22. You're seeing an asterisk behind the FY22 budget because this is an adjusted figure. It differs from what you will find in Article 8. The budget in Article 8 for this current FY22 is $32,876,987, and of which, though, $150,000 were funded through free cash for one-time expenses.
So we deducted them when we start the budget development for next year. So you're seeing a new figure for FY23, which represents a 1.7 million increase over the adjusted budget for FY 2022. And in the FY23 budget, there will be $200,000 coming from free cash for one-time expense, and 1.5 million of the increase will go towards ongoing expenses. The next slide is shows the budget of the school district over the past 9 years, and you can see the growth has been substantial. As the population has increased, the budget has grown by over $10 million over the course of 9 years. Again, this is driven by different things, enrollment being the main factor, but also the composition of students we have and the challenges we face, whether it's with English language learners or special education students for educating them. So we've responded to that with these budgetary changes throughout the years. The per pupil expenditure is a slide that simply shows a comparison of what the state per pupil average expenses and what Nantucket has been up until the school year of 2019-2020. The reason that we don't have more current data is it usually comes in March or April, and it's usually 2 years behind. So we're going to get update figures for 2020, 2021, probably sometime next month. And then that's how the state operates. They're a little behind in that metric, but you can see that over 10 years, the difference between the average state per pupil expense and Nantucket has been anywhere between $7,500 and the current, well, not the current, but the 2019-2020, the latest available data, which is roughly $6,300 difference. This obviously is a representation of the challenges of us being on an island and everything that we have to do as a district on our own. Chapter 70. Now this is an updated slide. When I send the packet when I send the presentation to the finance department, the following day, basically on the last Friday, we got the new projected figures for 2022-2023 Chapter 70. We're seeing a $307,000 increase, which is great news. The previous year, it was for 2 years it was level funded, and last year we got the minimum increase for Chapter 70, which is $30 per pupil. And Chapter 70 is a complicated formula. It's gone through several iterations, but it starts with the foundation budget, which is what the state perceives to be adequate funding to provide acceptable education to every student in a district. And then from the foundation budget, it also takes a look at the enrollment and the composition of the student, the demographics of the students. What's the percentage of English language learners? How many special education kids there are in the district, low income students, and things of that nature. The projected enrollment they have used for this calculation is 1,668, and our foundation budget for FY23 given by the state is $22,613,000. Now that is, like I said, this is the bare minimum that will sufficiently fund education. So we've historically been over that figure, and then that's been the case. The interesting part about it is there is 6 factors that go into Chapter 70. Like I said, the foundation budget. Then you have the local contribution as well, which is what a district can afford to pay for education. Usually the Chapter 70 is supposed to act as a balancer to cover 17.5% of the foundation budget, and the 82.5% that make up the rest should come from local revenues of the town. The next slide is the federal grants. Federal grants have seen a huge increase over previous years due to the fact that we've received 3 separate ESSER funds. These are funds that were obviously related to the pandemic, and we have in total for them $1.4 million for ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. They range they have different expiration dates, if I can call it that. We can use SR1 up until 2023, SR2 up until September 24, and SR3 up until September of 2025. So we have some time to absorb these funds and use them. The SR1 was used strictly for supplies, which were PPE, personal protective equipment, and things of that nature, as we were dealing with the pandemic last year. And SR2 and SR3 are more focused on bridging education gaps, learning gaps, and also social emotional state of students and staff and professional development. So there is a different shift of the priorities that these two grants are supposed to cover. The usual title grants, Title 1 is based on socioeconomic metrics such as percentage of free and reduced students in the district. Title 2, preparation, training, and recruitment of high quality teachers and principals. Title 3 is the English language learners grant, so it focuses on that demographic of our students. And then we have Title 4 for professional services. There is several special education grants, all the IDEA grants that you see, the IDEA supplement, the early childhood. These are all special education grants with different purposes. Next slide presents the NPS FY23 budget broken by school and how it's going to be apportioned. As you can see, athletics and technology have the lowest portion, 2 and 3% respectively, and the schools are pretty steady percentage-wise of the budget. That has been the case over the past 5 years. NES about 17%, NIS 14%, CPS 15%, and NHS 20%. Central office is 16%, and facilities at 13% of the total budget for FY23 projected. This is simply a split of our budget to show what percentage covers payroll and what percentage covers other operating expenses. So as you can see, payroll is 83%. That is being the case. It's actually been growing. When I started working for the school district in 2015, the percentage was 80, and the split was 80-20. Now it's 83-17. So that's something that we have to monitor. We have to ensure that we not only are appropriately staffed as a district, but we also can cover operating expenses such as utilities, repair and maintenance of buildings, any kind of travel falls into that category, athletics, whether it's athletics or professional development, our busing contract, our Chartwell's subsidy, and things of that nature. So this is an essential part that we should maintain a focus on. And the community school revenue breakdown, we usually present that portion as well to show how the budget has moved in the past 21 years. Gifts and donations, it's not that they didn't exist back in 2002, 2006 in the years that we've used. I just couldn't find information about the amounts that were received back then to verify it. But I've been tracking it since 2017. As you can see, it's been a major portion of the student community of the community school budget. The past 2 years it has been essential to the survival of the community school as it was hit hard by the pandemic, and there was lower enrollment, a lot of cancellation of classes, so the revenue streams did not come anything close to what was budgeted. So that's where gifts, donations, and any kind of grants have helped the community school through that period, and we feel that today they're in a much better place, and going forward, we expect slowly for the community school to return to normal. The participation fees, obviously, these are the revenues generated with different programs, and appropriation, that is the general fund subsidy, and this year we're seeing a 50,000 increase, for which we're very thankful to town administration and the finance department. We had to negotiate this. This is a huge portion of it goes to cover, just to let you know, cover medical insurance costs, which for the community school they have to cover on their own. So this is a big portion of this appropriation is expanded on to cover those costs. And with that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Khaled.
Sure. So as the district leadership team set out to determine the budget needs for each school, each program, and each department, the following parameters were put into place for our budget planning. So the first one is that we really want to make sure our budget needs are tied to district and school goals based on what we have learned from our pandemic learning year. And we know that there needs to be a focus on access and equity for all students. We want to make sure that building budgets that they reflect projected enrollments and curriculum and instructional improvements as well, and that any additional need due to COVID is also addressed. Of course, principals and directors were asked to identify essential services for their students as they planned their budgets. An important element was that went into the budget design for this year was the physical, social, and emotional well-being of students, all of whom have been profoundly affected by the pandemic. We do need to be sure that our budgets are based on trends around expenditures in the last 3 years. We want to continue to utilize any and all revenue streams outside of the budget, such as the federal and state grants that Martin explained. He spoke about the federal grants in our previous slides. And finally, we want to be sure and look carefully at what we are spending with utilities. So here is an overview of the budget increases at each of the 4 schools for FY23. The Nantucket Elementary School is looking to add a 0.5 English as a second language teacher based on the large number of English learner students in this school. It would help to move the district towards compliance for ESL instruction. At this moment, we are not yet in compliance. They are also looking to add 2 teaching assistants to provide support with general education classrooms. Nantucket Intermediate School will add an additional 5th grade teacher to account for a larger 5th grade coming in next year. Cyrus Pierce Middle School has asked for an additional guidance counselor to offer necessary support at the middle school level. In addition, there is a request for an increase in various supply lines to account for higher student needs. Nantucket High School is requesting a 0.6 landscape environmental science teacher to bring back our landscaping vocational program, as well as a full-time art teacher to help with the large number of student requests for art electives. And here are the budget requests from district-wide departments. In the English Learner Department, there is a need to increase funding in the remediation account to assist with interrupted learning throughout the pandemic. The tech department is looking to increase funding in tech seasonal salaries so that all of the summer work that needs to be completed prior to the start of the school year is effectually done. And in addition, they are requesting a full-time educational technology specialist to support the huge increase in educational software across the district. Special Services is looking to bring on an additional school psychologist to ease the burden of the 2 district school psychologists who are struggling to keep up with the number of special education evaluations that are being requested and required. In addition, there is a request for a full-time district-wide board certified behavior analyst, a special education interpreter, a board behavior analyst, and to assist with the increased behavioral issues that have manifested themselves in this post-pandemic year. And finally, the Special Services Department has seen a need for a part-time transition program specialist to work with our oldest special needs students who will be transitioning out of school and into the community. So what do we hope to accomplish with this budget? We hope to attend to unfinished learning and address social emotional needs of students due to the pandemic. We want to offer more support to our special education school psychologists who are doing evaluations and specific programming for our students. We expect to achieve federal compliance for instruction of English learners at our elementary school. We want to offer additional classroom support at the kindergarten level as well. There will be more elective choices in art and vocational education for high school students. And there will be more educational technology support across the district. So now I would like to share with you the FY 2023 capital project requests. As always, we are grateful to the town of Nantucket for the capital funding support that we have requested each year. So as you can see from the pictures here, several of our school building roofs need replacing. We can certainly say that the weather on Nantucket does quite a job on our roofs. Our Director of Facilities and Grounds, Diane O'Neill, has written a bid for 4 of these roofs to be done over the course of the summer, but we know that we will need more to be done in the coming months. In addition, there are assorted building improvements that are necessary. For example, we will need to paint windows and doors at the high school. We are looking to replace or repair old cabinetry and flooring at our elementary school, and we will need shingling in certain areas of the high school as well. And finally, we do hope to begin phase 9 of the campus-wide master plan, which focuses on athletic improvements. In this slide, you can see all of the different phases prior to phase 9 that have already been completed. And I do want to point out that the intention to work on improving our outdated athletic complex has been in place since 2015, when the focus and funding had to actually go towards building a new intermediate school. So I'm really pleased that we are finally able to bring the attention back to the athletic improvements that are so needed. And this is really because of an ever-growing participation rate that we're seeing. This project will be a tremendous asset, not only to our students, but also to the community at large for generations to come. So I am very happy to open this up to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Martin and Dr. Hallett. So Finance Committee, actually, thanks, Dr. Hallett, because I could only see 8 people and was getting even more of a challenge. Questions from the Finance Committee? Jill.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for such a good presentation. And
Sure.
It's always really interesting and concise and clear. Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to know, I see a lot about the need for more teaching, more staff for special needs and for special learning. Do you all have anything planned, or maybe you already have something in place for the kids who are on maybe the opposite end? What do they call them? Forgive me, I don't know the terms anymore. I think they used to call it gifted. They probably call it something different now. But do you have anything in place for that?
So we don't have specific programs in place. We currently do have a gifted and talented teacher at our intermediate school. But what we are doing is we are taking a real look at our instructional practice as a whole, and creating and following something called universal design for learning, which basically allows for us to create our lessons, create our units, create our instruction around the individual students in the classroom. So if we know that there are students that are really need to be pushed, then we offer that kind of support. If we instead know there are students that are really high flyers and doing really well and perhaps need more stimulation, then we need to be able to differentiate and plan our instruction towards that. That is what we are seeing happen across the Commonwealth. The programs, gifted and talented programs, are kind of being molded into what can be happening in the classroom as opposed to being separated out. So we know that inclusion is really what's working best for a lot of our students. And so it's a great opportunity that way. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm happy to answer anything further. So
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Jill. Joe?
Yeah, I don't know if this is for Dr. Hallett or for Martin, but the 16 million or so phase 9 of the master plan, is that money included in the capital program committee plans for next year? Is that how is that going to be funded?
Yes, it is in the capital program. So it will go to the annual town meeting for a vote, and then to the annual town election. So
So it's it's going to be debt financed.
yes.
Okay. And I assume that the current controversy over PFAS and the synthetic turf fields is ongoing, and whether or not you actually install synthetic turf fields or something else has yet to be decided.
That is correct. The plan is to follow the current understanding and the current recommendation for turf fields, because we do not have the ability to maintain grass fields with the amount of play. We have students right now who 72% of our students are student athletes, and we have fields that are struggling to be in code and to be safe for our players. So the recommendation is, for the amount of play that we're seeing with the number of students that are using our fields, it's important to consider the health and safety of them, and to look at the possibility of synthetic turf. But that said, certainly we are open to hearing information around PFAS and around different options. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Other questions? Stephen?
So in my time on Finance Committee, my favorite question every year is posed to the superintendent, and it's, are you getting enough money? And the answer is always the same. When it's kind of disappointing that the answer is always, yes, we're getting exactly what we need, because I just can't believe that every year it's true. And so just now I'm looking at the per pupil expenses at NPS and also at the state level. And over the last 10 years, for the data you provided here, we're not quite keeping up with inflation. So yes, we're spending more per pupil than the state, but we're not even doing enough to keep up with consumer price index. So how are we tackling all these challenges if we're not spending more?
So we always look at how we are able to save, and the expectations that we have each year through retirements and understanding where there can be cost savings, obviously through grants. We have been so fortunate with the ESSER funding that has been available to us these years, and that has really given us an additional boost. With regard to next year, again, we are, we're always looking at our enrollment and looking at what we need with regard to the students that we have in front of us. In building the budget and looking at what we need, I would never say no to additional money, but I do feel that what we do have is working, and it's what we are able to, and it's going to work for what our needs are. Obviously, if we felt that there were additional funds that were needed, we would come out and ask. So. Okay,
so as healthcare expenses grow, and as retiree benefits grow, the per pupil expenses can actually trail. It can fall below inflation, and we can still achieve all of the goals.
At this time, yes. In future years, that may be a different story.
Okay, thanks.
Martin, do you want to add to the conversation?
Just two clarification points. One on chapter 70, Brian correctly texted me to let me know this is a preliminary number. This is a governor's recommendation, and that number usually changes. So the 370,000 increase in chapter 70 might change. Whether it changes positively or negatively, we'll have to wait to see, but that is the initial recommendation. Just wanted to point that out. The second point is to Stephen's question. We expand, per pupil. This is just on the base of the budget. What we expand is the per pupil. Obviously, we have medical insurance costs and retiree costs that are separate from our budget. So our total expense for the schools is upwards of $40 million a year when you take into consideration the medical insurance costs for all active employees and retirees, as well as all the contributions for retirement to Barnstable or any of those. So in that aspect, we feel like we are getting a great appropriation.
Thank you, Martin. Peter, I'm going to go with you because I'm not sure when you might lose.
Yeah, I'm in my car now, but I guess my question is there any coordination between the use of the fields at the Boys and Girls Club and the school? Or they just, I know they're independent units, but it would seem to me that it would make sense with the ridiculously high participation we have in students with sports that we coordinated with both Boys Club and Girls Club and the school. I guess, Dr. Halleck.
Sure. So we have not brought that into play, mostly because we need to have standard playing fields for high school expectations around MIAA. And I, not having had that discussion, I always believed that perhaps it wasn't, they weren't up to high school requirements. So understandable. And yes, we're always looking for more opportunities and places to play. But at this moment, we need to make sure that the fields that we have are in the best shape that they can be, and considering that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Chris.
Thanks. Well, since Steve and I have been tag teaming on this same question now for as long as we've been on FinCom together, I'm going to keep down that line of inquiry. First of all, very gratified to see an art teacher on your list of requests for this year. If we're going to spend $20 million on playing fields, I'm glad to see we're adding an art teacher. And sometimes the way I get at this issue is to ask if you did have additional resources. I mean, pick a number. If you had another 250,000, 500,000, where would you go next with that? Or asking it another way, kind of what were the things that were on the bubble that you would have liked to have asked for, but you cut back on?
So our English learner population really needs, we need to increase the support for our teachers who are working with English learners. So what something that didn't make the it, but we may find that we do have funding for it, would be an instructional coach to work with teachers who are working with students who are English learners, particularly former English learners, those that have left the program based on the requirements from the state, but still are learning language. They're still English learners and language learners going forward. They still need support, and teachers need to know the best ways and the best strategies to work with these students so that they can perform and achieve academically and move forward. So that's an area that I would like to see a little bit more. So
if I could just follow up, Denise.
Yes, please, Chris.
Are you constrained at this point by the physical plant in terms of adding additional things? So is it that if you wanted to bring in those heads, you have no place to put them? Is that one of the challenges?
Oh, absolutely. We are tight sneakers right now, especially at our upper grades. Middle school and high school are starting to see the bubble that came through with the intermediate school. But we know that looking down the road, we will have a lull. We will see that that our numbers will go down a little bit. We have an incoming 6th grade class that is quite low, and future classes, looking ahead at future classes, our numbers are pretty steady. So we aren't seeing that big bubble coming in, but in the next few years, we're going to be looking at difficulty of space. So that is certainly one issue. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Joe, before I go to you, I just want to, Brian, you had your hand up in case you wanted to clarify something that we've been talking about.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Joe, for letting me go before you. I just wanted to clarify the question about the health insurance and the retirement insurance. And those are funded out of they're not part of the school budget in any way. And they are funded on a separate line item within the town's budget. And when we put the budget together, in all my time here and all my time working with Martin when he was here and in his time at the school, those increases have never impacted what we have discussed or given to the school when they've asked for the number. I think in all our time here, when school has come for a number, we have town administration has done everything possible to give them the number that they've come and asked us for. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Any health insurance or retirement increases do not factor into our discussions with the school because they're funded entirely through the general fund, not in the school budget itself. So I just wanted to add a little clarity to that.
Thank
And
you,
how
Brian.
we're funding those.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Vicino, I see you, but I want to get through all the finance committee members first, and then I'll call on you. But your little hand, I see your electronic hand. Joe?
Thanks, Denise. Dr. Hallett, could you just give us a quick sense of staff retirements, the kind of recruiting market, and the question housing and how housing affects your ability to recruit and retain teachers?
So the retirements, let's see if I can remember all of the things you've asked. Retirements,
I'm trying to say people leaving, then you have to recruit
Look
to
out, yeah.
fill those positions. And anyway,
Exactly. So we have, I'd say, an average number of teachers leaving. We don't, we're not seeing, a large number that came in at the same time and are of the same age to retire. It's fairly normal, I would say, which is around 10 teachers, 10 to 15 teachers who may be retiring, but I don't even see that this year. I think we're looking at 5 or 6, but it's still early, so you never know. But then with regard to hiring, we are struggling. There are 13 positions, not teaching positions. We have 3 teacher positions, but 10 TA positions and custodial positions as well that we have not been able to fill. And this has been a challenge. We're already past the halfway point of the year, and we're struggling to hire and keep those positions filled. And housing is certainly a component of that. We have been able to find housing and to assist in our newest teachers finding housing, but certainly the housing crisis that's on the island does present its difficulties, and certainly is part of some of the anxiety that new teachers, and really all teachers, have as we hire and as we support our teachers in creating their homes here on the island.
Great, thank you. That was helpful.
Sure.
Thank you, Joe. Dr. Hallett, a couple quick things.
Sure.
Not yet in compliance on ELL federal standards. What's the implication of that?
The implication is that in our tiered focus monitoring and our audit that would come through, that we would be cited on not being compliant. This is a challenge because often districts are chasing compliance. It all depends on the number of English learners that are happening within the year. Mm-hmm. And this year we saw some growth. And have realized that at our elementary school, it has the highest number that it's had in many years. And for that reason, in looking at the expectations of how we instruct our students and the required number of hours of instruction explicit to English language learning, we have not been able to reach that. So we're happy to say that by adding a teacher, we should be able to do that next year. So and part of it has been staffing. We have had an open position for several years that we have not been able to fill, and just recently we have filled this position currently. But now we are seeing that we need to add another one for next year. So that's basically the implications of not having enough teachers to cover this. So
thank you. And sure. I'm thinking the school psychologist that you want to recruit, that's going to be quite difficult.
Yes,
I also think Fairwinds, if I recall, I see in the paper that Fairwinds is always recruiting, and I realize they're not equivalent, but my understanding from the colleagues at Fairwinds is that for children, it has to be in person. You can't it doesn't work on the screen as well as it might with an adult.
Right. Our school psychologists are primarily involved in evaluations around IEPs, around individual education plans for special education, and identifying and determining a plan of action for any student who may need special education assistance. So with the number of requests that have come through, not only from parents, but also suggestions from staff, and sometimes outside evaluators as well, there has just been an overwhelming number. And so the recommendation by the state is, and I can't remember specifically, but we are over that recommendation. So you should have a specific caseload per school psychologist. And we're right now over that. So we know that we need an additional school psychologist. What we're currently struggling with this year is hiring social workers, which do provide a lot of that social emotional assistance and mental health counseling and work with our students. And that is really what we're struggling with this year. We hope that next year we will have those positions filled, and we're currently looking to fill them now. It's just been a real struggle. So
Thank you for that.
sure.
I don't see any other hands from the Finance Committee members. So Mr. Bacino, thank you for your patience.
My pleasure, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to Dr. Hallett and Martin. And I also want to thank Diane O'Neill for the work that she does on the facilities. My question is in regards to the $250,000 allotted or asked for new roofs. Just some quick back of the napkin math. At market rate, as a builder, that's equivalent to enough roof area to supply electricity through solar panels for 25 houses on Nantucket. I'm asking what the consideration is to install solar on our schools, and if that's under consideration, and if not, can we start to think about it for the long term?
So if I may, I'd like to invite Mrs. Diane O'Neill to answer that question. She has a little bit more experience. I know that there have been requests in the past, but there have been specifications that have not permitted solar paneling to be installed based on the pitch of the roof and additional things. So Diane, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn this question over to you, because I know you've dealt with it on a much deeper basis than I could.
Not at all. We actually, before we bid out the intermediate school, we went to the HDC, and back then it was 2015, 16. Basically, the only thing we could use is solar shingles. There was a product on the market at the time. The payback for the shingles, the time it would take to recoup the money to put the shingles on the roof was 23 plus years. The life expectancy of those shingles was less than 20 years. So it didn't make fiscal sense for us building a school, trying to do value engineering to put those solar shingles on the roof. I understand now there's different products, and the town did do an RFP recently and chose the vendor to be, and I can't remember the name of it, but they're the ones that are going to be doing the solar farm at the water company. It didn't work out for the schools. There's some older roofs, and as soon as you poke a hole in a roof, the warranty's gone. So I think that you probably know that, Mr. Patino. It's a difficult thing, and it's difficult as a facilities person to say, sure, go ahead and put them up there. But I've talked to so many people in my chair across the Cape and Islands that say as soon as they put them up, they have leaks everywhere and everyone's going like this. So I think the first step for us is to replace these roofs, because they are at the end of their useful life. And then we can look at energy saving products. We do a lot of energy conservation, a lot of energy projects. I actually have another one. I heard from a gentleman today about replacing some of the lighting in the elementary school. All the other schools have been done, and some of the elementary school was done, but not all. So I'd like to get it all done. So that's my next energy conservation project. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Diane.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pacino.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we close this agenda item? Seeing none. Dr. Hallett, Martin, and everyone who's been on the call, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Looking forward to seeing you in person maybe next year. So
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, agenda item number, Brian, is there anything else you want to add in respect to the school budget before we close that item?
I'll just let everybody know, because I know Diane mentioned the name. It's SunPower who is actually doing the water company, and they've also, as part of that procurement, were awarded the bid to do a design build small scale solar at the sewer department that we had received a state grant from. We did put out some buildings, including the schools, but those were the two that they felt would be most ideal for this first round. So it's SunPower that's doing that, just so everybody knows.
Thank you. Okay. All right, now on to discussion of Article 80. Home Rule Petition, amend the Historic District Commission's enabling legislation to encourage the adoption of solar power and renewable energy systems. Mr. Booms, I will turn it over to you to talk about your article, and we'll go from there. Hold on a second, Mr. Booms, before you start. Linda, you have your hand up?
I will wait till after Jeff does his presentation.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. Mr. Booms, over to you. Or not. Jeff, I think he stepped away. He was there earlier. I saw him, but now we just see his screensaver. Well, Holly, I'm going to take a sidestep here. Thank you for being here. And, oh, there he is. Jeff, we're waiting for you. And you're on mute.
Unmute. Thank you, Finance Committee. Kind of make this brief. Anytime something that's necessary, your availability is cut in half, is a real issue for the island going forward. We all know from an environmental standpoint, we see it in the newspaper all the time. In 20 years, Coatue can be washed away, and a recent storm out of Matica took about 5 feet of the beach. Our electricity usage on the island continues to rise. Increased building, increased electricity use from people using more heat pumps. Mass Save is driving this partly too, with it's a way to use a renewable energy. With the current, this is pretty straightforward, with the current HDC decisions, depriving the island of 50% of its solar power generation. Outside the historic district, if you have a street, anybody that's roof is facing the south, that's on the back in their backyard, can be approved for solar panels. If the house is facing the street, then they're eliminated. So that eliminates 50% of the roofs on Nantucket generally. And I'm sure those numbers are, they're, I'm a caretaker, and we've had 3 roofs that are on side streets that face the street, that all the neighbors wanted solar for their neighbor, and it was denied through HDC. So this isn't in the historic district. This is the goal of providing solar power for the island, which solar power is currently our only green alternative for energy production on the island. We've had some windmills, but they're not really a viable alternative currently. And the goal of the article is to allow the island to be able to produce renewable energy outside of the historic district.
Thank you. No,
Thank
sorry.
you.
No, sorry. I thought you were done. Were you?
I'm all set.
Thank you. Okay, fine. First, I start with Finance Committee members for their questions, and then Linda, I'll get to you with your hand up. You're the first one with your hand up. So, Finance Committee, questions for Jeff. Can I just call you Jeff?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Jeff? Joe?
I don't have Jeff Boom's, article in front of me, so I'm curious, does the HDC's charter currently discourage the use, solar power installations, or, and I guess, and is the language that Mr. Booms is suggesting, is it just sort of trying to expand the number of roofs? I mean, I don't quite get what, since I don't have the article in front of me, what will his language do in terms of the HDC charter? Just force them to put panels on roofs, or what? So.
I'll get to that, and Holly will get to that when it's our turn. We'll explain that.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, actually, I'll just go right to Holly right now to answer that question, and then Linda, I'll go to you next, and then I'll go back to Finance Committee.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Chair, we had an HDC meeting this afternoon, and I was able to actually get a little bit of information and comments that I would like to pass along. I did send it to Maria, so you do all have it for a record. So I have a memo I'd like to read into the record, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
At the February 3rd, 2022 Historic District Commission meeting, the Commission discussed the proposed citizen warrant article to amend the HDC Special Act A301. The Special Act was created in 1955 to promote the general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Nantucket to the preservation and protection of historic buildings, places, and districts of the historic interest through the development of an appropriate setting for these buildings, places, and districts, and through the benefits resulting in the economy of Nantucket in developing and maintaining its vacation travel industry through the promotion of the historic associations. Since 1972, the Special Act has been amended 11 times. However, if there is an amendment again, it should be done collectively and thoughtfully done. The Historic District Commission has solar design guidelines called Sustainable Preservation, an addendum to Building with Nantucket in Mind, that was reviewed and adopted in 2009. Nantucket solar guidelines were created in part by Clean Air, Cool Planet and sponsored by Sustainable Nantucket, where Nantucket's historic districts practices are used as a core or case study for other historic district commissions in the country. The guide is called Energy Efficiency, Renewable Energy, and Historic Preservation, a guide to historic district commissions. As with all historic district design guidelines, the Nantucket Historic District Solar Design Guidelines follow the Secretary of the Interior's standards for sustainability and rehabilitating historic buildings for recommended placement of solar. In fiscal year 2019, the HDC approved 55 solar installations, where in fiscal year 2020, the HDC approved 81 solar installations. The existing guidelines work for the entire local and national historic landmark of Nantucket. Staff notes that it's important to analyze whether solar technology can be used successfully and will benefit a historic building without compromising its character or character of the site or the surrounding historic district.
Right. It's yours long, Dan.
Further, the existing guidelines.
Holly, hang on. Kevin, can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. Sorry, Holly.
That's okay. Further, the existing guidelines that are used by the Historic District Commission were not created in a vacuum. Rather, they were created with local energy staff, community members, HDC members, preservation specialists, and energy professionals by working together. During the HDC's meeting today, the members notated the following. The Special Act should be left alone. There should be not any changes to the Special Act just to suit a special interest group. The current design guidelines for solar sustainable preservation and addendum to Building with Nantucket in Mind works. The current design guidelines already provide the Commission to reasonably allow solar panels and renewable energy systems outside of the old historic districts. Any appeal to the Select Board for solar have been submitted in opposition to the written guidelines that the Commission uses. The proposed language for the amendment is sloppy, and inserting these words into the Special Act may have unintended consequences. The proposed language is written in a way to mandate review of solar installation versus determining their appropriateness. Lastly, the Historic District Commission noted that the applicant did not present the proposed amendment to the Commission for any consideration on this application or this discussion. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Holly. Linda, I'll go to you and then I'll go back to the Finance Committee members.
I have to second, I was involved with creating the original, and I was on the HDC in 2009. And what I have had discussions with Lauren Sinatra, who's our energy person, and they are a little out of date. I think we all know that they're a little bit out of date, but we did that because we were being faced with windmills and solar and everything else in 2009. Technology's changed, terminology has changed, but it was a local thing. It was not in the bylaw. It was not in the special act. And we created these guidelines and they should be updated. And I think there was some move afoot last year before the pandemic to update them, and we're going to pursue that. There are some troubling things about the way the warrant article is written. I believe the word shall is in there. We have no shall in anything related to the HDC, not really in the act and not really locally and in policy or building with Nantucket in mind, because building with Nantucket in mind is a guidebook.
Linda, hang on a second. Kevin, please mute. Thank you. And also while we're taking an interruption, Andy's iPhone and there was a Lucy's iPhone before or iPad. You have to have first and last name, please. Thank you.
I think Kevin's still not muted.
Sorry.
You're still not muted. There you go. So there's some troubling language in this as well, but the overall, the state really hates it when Nantucket in particular, because I've been up to the state and testified on various things, really hates it when Nantucket sends up these minor home rule petitions that they have to then go through committee and they have to then do this and do that with them. We have discussed, and I did it a long time ago, I rewrote the entire act to correct the misspellings, the misterminology, incorporating some of 40C, which is the rest of the state is operating under 40C. So I have talked to Holly about that, and I'm going to give her a copy of that. Also in the state 40C, the governor asked that it include for all the other towns with historic districts, other than the 3 specials, include language related to solar panels and alternative energy. So that language is pretty good, and I've seen it. I have a copy of it, and that is already in 40C. So if we start subsuming stuff from out of 40C into our own special act, that should be covered in the act at some point. But sending up an individual home rule petition, they're going to look very dimly at this if we come back with an overall right to fix the whole act, that it's 40 years old. So I think this should not get a positive recommendation. It's dangerous with the word shall. And I applaud him for going after the solar. I know he's a big solar proponent. I am as well. But you still have to try to merge historic preservation with modern technology. And that's where the HDC has deservedly struggled with how to do that, especially outside of town, how to do that on south-facing roof lines that sometimes face the road. So they do struggle with this a lot. And there has been some variety of decisions made, which is frustrating for a lot of people in the solar community. But I think they're getting more savvy about this, and people are getting more savvy about what roof color to put up there to get the panels, alternate, secondary roofs and, ground arrays. So I think everybody's trying to work through this, but it's been very difficult. But I don't think it's a home rule petition that has unintended consequences should be promoted. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. Finance Committee, questions? Jill?
I'm not sure who to direct this to, but can somebody on the call answer how many solar applications HDC has had and how many have been denied?
Holly just gave those for the last 2 years. I was one of the only ones that it was denied, but I was one of the only ones that actually took it to the selectmen, and actually I won the appeal, and the solar panels went in 350 feet from the road out in Eel Point. But in general, I know Holly's been involved with a couple of these appeals, but not many of them are appeals. People try to work through it, but Holly can answer that better than I can.
Absolutely. I can, first and foremost, the commission works with people. I just, invite you to one of our 6.5-hour meetings weekly, and listen to the commission when they do talk about solar. They have the solar application. They work with folks and they work with them. Would rather not deny somebody, and work with them. They have strict guidelines, but there are amendable, and they want to work with them. I mentioned there's been a total in the last 2 fiscal years of 136. I don't have this current fiscal year stats right in front of me, but 136 is pretty good if you consider how many applications we've seen. I can't tell you how many have, again, the denials, there's very few and far between. I can tell you that. There's more approvals than denials. Sorry, I don't have specifics.
Okay, thank you. Holly, thank you, Jill. Anything else, Jill? No? Okay, Stephen, you're unmuted, so is there a question coming?
Yeah, and I guess this is for Holly first, Linda, if we can get Holly first and then you, maybe, okay. So Holly, in your letter, that I didn't see the text of it, so maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but I thought you referenced historic districts, and the text of Mr. Boom's article, or the text that he wants to insert, I think is related only to areas outside the town and Wisconsin historic districts. Am I understanding correctly?
Actually, then that's a kind of a misconception that people don't quite understand. Nantucket's not just a National Historic Landmark, but we're also a local district. So you have the 255 town in Sconset that were created first to create the historic district. But in 1970, because of Tristram's Landing, that created the need or the want at the time to make the entire island a local district. So essentially, when people say it's not in the historic district, that's not true. The entire island is a local and a national historic district. So again, in inserting the town and Wisconsin historic districts, saying that it's going to be outside is kind of a moot point, because the design guidelines are for the entire island.
Okay, so the HCC doesn't recognize there being any distinction between town, Sconset, and other areas of the island. There are no districts in the eyes of the HTC.
No, the local 55 districts is how I refer to the 2 old districts. They have higher scrutiny, and it's very clear within their design guidelines that they have a higher scrutiny within those historic areas, if you will, the old historic districts, as well as if they're on a historic resource. They've reviewed and approved a solar array on a 1920s bungalow on Main Street. I bet most people wouldn't know that. So trying to insinuate that the HDC, it does not work with folks, and is kind of is not true. They do.
Okay, I didn't hear from Mr. Booms or read in this text that there's any insinuation or any statement that the HTC doesn't work with people. I think what this is saying is that there ought to be more latitude, or there ought to be less scrutiny outside of the town and Sconset old historic districts to allow for visible installation of solar panels. Is that not in keeping with your or Linda or anybody else in this call, their understanding of what is being proposed?
Yes, they do give a lot of latitude outside of the old, the areas of critical concern of downtown and Wisconsin. And maybe
But isn't that what this article is saying? I mean, it seems like a very small change here. I mean, it's not even a whole sentence.
Well, I'm more concerned about the process, as well as going up with a single home rule petition that they're going to get pretty angry about up there. They've done it before. They don't like it when it comes up like this. And the language isn't really correct. I know we just realized that the shall is in various parts of the act, but not this way. It's not written right. It's not written well. And we want to go back with a full rewrite, including the paragraph from the state on solar. which sort of goes in this direction, but it obviously this is a subjective process at the HDC, painfully. And you have to go with each property is individual as to whether how visible it is, how in your face, if it's on a green roof and you got black panels. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that the HDC has to consider, as well as the impact on the particular setting and the neighborhood within which it lies. There is no blanket approval or not approval in or out of those districts. So each one has to be taken by itself. And the act shouldn't be tinkered with one sentence at a time, because then when we go back up there for the big one, they may give us a bunch of trouble about that. So this should not go on its own. I granted people get frustrated by the HDC process. I do. I've brought solar panels in for clients. We get frustrated by, oh, it's visible, not visible. What's wrong with it? If it is visible, those are the kinds of comments we have in Tom Nevers and Hakamo and places like that. So that's just inherent in the process of a subjective HDC. And that's why they're guidelines and not rules and regulations, because not every rule and regulation is going to apply to every single situation. Does that pretty much do it?
Thank you, Linda. Jeff?
I appreciate everybody's feedback, and I do apologize for not reaching out more. I can only say that probably COVID. My caretaking client is the bungalow on Main Street, and so I appreciate that being approved, and it's up on the dormers. And as anybody that drives up at 132 Main Street, you can see as you're driving down, you don't see it, which is great. And I work with both solar installers. As I said, I mainly do caretaking and contracting. We've kind of given up on asking, say completely. Got a couple clients on Matticat, towards the end of Matticat Road, that face the road, and neither solar guys want to go to HDC because they've been denied. So I would love to talk to people about how to correctly word and how we can go forward. I apologize for any miswording, and always great to learn. This is the first warrant article I've ever done. And I look, we can't raise the island out of the water. And right now, this is one of the few things we have to, from an island standpoint, besides, using less to produce electricity, which we all use, and to reduce our global warming. So I appreciate people's feedback. Looking forward to having more feedback. We're not installing enough solar to take care of the electricity we're using. So somehow we need to change that.
Jeff, here's what thank you for
that.
Sorry. No, thank you for that. Finance Committee, here's what I propose. As we'll be getting the letter from the HTC that they just wrote this afternoon. And if we want to amend the wording as part of our motion, so if we were to make, for example, if we were to make a positive motion and would have to, provided that the wording was appropriate instead of shall, or whatever's appropriate. We have legal counsel attending on February 8th as a public hearing. So the fact that this article can just be discussed as part of the public hearing element of the February 8th meeting. And so Finance Committee, if you're not ready to make a motion now, seeing as we just got some last minute information, my suggestion is we add it to the agenda for Tuesday, the 8th. Can I have comments about that? Is that got a thumbs up from Joanna, from Jill, Peter? Stephen, Chris, Joe, is that okay that we just, so
yeah,
Jeff?
I mean, I'd like to read the letter and have a little more time to discuss this as well. So
Okay, all right, good. All right, Holly, thank you for being here and thank you for getting us the letter and going through it and reading it into the record. Jeff, thank you for presenting, and if you could come back on the 8th, it would be great. And then we will, and Linda as well, and then we will find out what's the appropriate, if we were to make a positive motion, what would the wording need to be adjusted to, if it's possible to adjust it. Because again, it's a scope question and all those kinds of things. So John Giorgio, the town council, can steer us in the right direction on that. So it gives us the option to do it, to get it to more palatable form, I guess is the word. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Linda. And okay, that's what we'll do. And Maria, I don't even know if we need to edit it to the agenda for the 8th, but if we do, then otherwise we can just do it under general articles. Thank you. Okay, now we are on item number 9 on the agenda, which is discussion of Article 81, Home Rule Petition, amend Special Act regarding the makeup of the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission. Now, we have discussed this article at length at a prior meeting. So what I am intending us to do on this next section is that I will ask the FinCom members if they have any questions that they want to ask of Hillary, who's on, I can see is on the Zoom call. And then after the Finance Committee has asked its questions, I will open it up to members of the public who have not, I will open it up for public comment for members of the public who have not yet spoken on this topic and would like to speak on it. And I'll give guidelines for that at that time. And then I will close the public comment and we'll move to discussion on potential motions, recommendations, and deliberations. So Finance Committee, Peter Schaefer. You're muted, Peter.
Sorry. Hi, Hillary.
Peter.
Who did you speak with specifically in state government that you met with, spoke with, that you stated in your letter?
Sure. Yeah, first, let me just say thank you, everybody. Hello. It's great to be here again. And I had all these opening remarks and I'm so glad I don't have to give them now. So thank you, Denise. I had a meeting with Dylan Fernandez.
In person?
A Zoom meeting.
A Zoom meeting, okay. Yeah. And when was that?
Oh, geez. It was before I submitted the article. I think it was in October.
And he made those commitments to you about pushing it through?
Yeah, he personally said the remarks that I included in my letter. Yeah. I mean, it's not just him, but he said that he would support it. He said, I'm happy to support if Nantucket Town Meeting votes it, I'm happy to support it. Yeah. Okay, and he also mentioned, this is the sort of thing, if Nantucket gets it to us right away, and he did make a point that Nantucket has to send the article up, that it could be passed through informal session.
Let me ask you another question. The last time when you presented, we asked you who you had spoken to on the planning board, and you came back to us that you hadn't spoken to anybody. Can you fill us in now on what your interaction has been with the current committee?
Yes, so I haven't spoken, well, first of all, Fritz McClure is the #2 signer on on this article. So, he's here tonight and I did speak with him. I've also spoken with Dave Iverson, and I made significant effort to speak with both the Planning Commission and, of course, the Planning Board is included in the Planning Commission. Before I signed the article, I asked them for feedback. I emailed everybody. I went to public comment at their meetings. So if there's not been enough discussion, it's only been because folks have not wanted to discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Joe, Jill. Go ahead, Jill.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Jill.
I wanted to know if you could elaborate a bit on how you came to this conclusion about these members, the 3 at-large members. Sorry for my dog, he's hungry. Hush. And the 3 at-large members being elected, right? And then bringing on somebody from the DPW. That to me seems, I know they had that before, but that seems like a bit of a conflict to me because they already work for someone else, really. And how you just focused on these 3 at-large members and then also going from the elected housing authority member to an unelected appointed AHTF member?
Sure, I can take those one at a time. So I'll talk first about the DPW. So this article would return the DPW as an ex officio member of the Planning Commission. And I should mention actually that it's the DPW or his or her designee as designated by the town manager. So if the the DPW director reports to the town manager, and if she would prefer somebody else serve, she has that discretion. The DPW director served on this commission for 46 years. In 2017, the NP and EDC filed a home rule petition. They proposed it in 2017 to town meeting. It was enacted by the legislature in 2019 to remove the DPW. And that was a point where Kara had been on this commission ex officio. She left and Chuck Larson came on. And at that point, this home rule petition was filed. So, I really tried to think about the mission of the commission and giving this commission every advantage to achieve its goals of long-range planning. This commission is the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the regional transportation. It's the regional planning agency for transportation purposes. Transportation is key for this commission, and there's certain transit goals. It's transit, meaning public transit, the NERDA, and also transportation. These goals, these transportation initiatives, they're very complex. They take many, many years, and it's always the DPW that has to manage them. So for instance, the milestone safety and accessibility improvement project, which added all the bus turnouts, the DPW was on point there. And the transit plans, they're funded. So we got over $2 million. I think it was $2.3 million for that Milestone Road project. The next project in the pipeline was supposed to be the Bartlett Roundabout, and we were queued up for $2 million for that. They're very expensive projects, and they have to be programmed in our TIP. And sometimes they can only be funded if they meet certain requirements, like they have to be fiscally constrained. It's like a very long road. And if things fall out because there's public opposition or something happens, we always want to have something back in that queue. We always have to be working on something. We have to have redundancy. So we have to have redundancy between the transportation planner and the people who are actually like putting the asphalt in place, which are the DPW. So I think we've really suffered from taking the DPW off this commission. Of course, we have neither a transportation planner now going on just short of 2 years, no transportation planner, and we're also working very hard to replace the DPW. But for a while, the DPW had to step into the transportation planner's shoes. And he was really at a disadvantage because he hadn't been coming to the meetings. The last thing I'll say is that I did look at the attendance records by combing through all the minutes wherever possible. And what I found was, the reason given by members of the commission for taking the DPW off was that, well, we had this problem with a quorum and we had 12 members and that's awkward. And anyway, the DPW can always come and we still have the advantage of the DPW, even if they're not on the commission. But what I saw was that in the 3 years prior to the removal, the DPW director attended 71% of meetings. So not perfect, but quite consistent attendance. After the DPW was removed, even though, they were still welcome to come, DPW still obviously has a lot of overlapping interest, they attended fewer than 10% of the meetings. So I think we can see that when the DPW was not on this commission and the DPW had been on this commission for 46 years, that person doesn't come. And I think it's a handicap. So this article proposes reinstating the DPW or his or her designee, which hopefully is pleasing and gives our town manager flexibility.
Okay,
the next question, do you want me to move on to the housing?
On the point, yeah, but on the point that you're making, you want to take off the two planning board members who have also been on for 46 years with their knowledge too. So
Yes, so I can get to that when I talk about the ex officio. Do you want me to talk about that now,
Sure.
Jill? Okay,
the need
so
to permit it.
yeah, so moving the planning people to 3 instead of all 5. So this was yeah, I had to decide when I thought about this, and I want to tell you, I didn't think about this in the vacuum. Like this, it wasn't just me like, oh, I talked to a lot of people and got a lot of different advice. Not all the advice agreed, and I made my best attempt to reconcile that different advice. So it seemed that 11 was a good number for the commission, because it is a problem to have even numbers occasionally. It seemed important to me to have preservation, planning, and cultural resources represented on this commission. So that is the addition of 1 extra person. For the reasons I mentioned, it also seemed to me important to bring the DPW back. And I wanted to respect the 11-member goal, and it did not seem necessary to me and to other people I spoke to. And, we can hear from Fritz or other people who know a lot about the planning board, that all 5 members of the planning board really needed to be on this commission. I just want to say, there's been a lot of questions about, well, but people are elected. I think there is a very big difference between the planning board, which does subdivision control, and compliance. They do compliance, making sure that the permits comply with our zoning law. It's very, very different role. And sometimes, some people have both skill sets, but it is a different skill set to be interested and capable and motivated by the long range planning. What are our children going to have on Nantucket is very different from subdivision control. And it can be hard for some people to move back and forth. So it just seemed to me that that even though by tradition we had all 5 members of the planning board on this commission, when this board was formed, it was nearly 50 years ago. Nantucket is practically unrecognizable today to what it was back then. The permitting, the subdivision, how busy the planning board. Imagine if you are, a planning board member and you go against someone's permit. And then you're going to that same person to try to get buy-in for your long-range plan. I mean, it's just very, very different roles. And so by having 3, it makes room for some other people, some different perspectives, some different voices, which I think are very valuable. And it still maintains a quorum of the planning board. So, and they get to choose who gets to be on it. So the people, ideally, the people who really care about long-range planning and have the time would be on it, and everybody would be happy.
Thank you, Hillary. Jill, any other follow-up questions?
Not at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Joe, you had your hand up.
Actually, the discussion was pretty good. I think my question was answered. Thanks.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, Hillary, what would you see your position if this committee is formed? Would you run for election, or would you appoint yourself, or what would you do?
Well, I wouldn't be able to appoint myself. I don't even know if I'm going to be on the historical commission. My term's up this year. I might not even get reappointed. It's not under my control. I have a strong interest in long-range planning. I've spent a tremendous amount of time getting familiar with the topic. And if this passes, I think I would be incredibly proud that any individual who is passionate could run in a general election, and very proud that every individual in Nantucket would be able to vote to put people directly on this really important commission. So I said at our last meeting that I would probably like to run. It's going to be a while before this ever comes to fruition, but yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Have you tried to get any other committees besides the historical committee that you're on now?
I am very busy with the Historical Commission. I probably volunteer my time to work for the town of Nantucket about 20 hours a week, and I have for close to 3 years. So, yeah.
Okay, but you never tried to get on the planning board or anything? This is
No.
the first,
Oh,
okay.
I did put in I tried to get on this commission. I applied when Leslie stepped down, Mary Longacre and I applied. It was a lovely discussion. Everyone was very gracious. Everyone was very respectful. We thought there was going to be 2 seats because a month earlier, one additional at-large member had tenured his resignation, but that person changed his mind. There's only 1 seat, and I wholly support Mary, and I think she's a wonderful commission member.
Okay, I just want to point out one thing. Fritz signing the petition is for Fritz, not for his committee.
Oh,
Correct?
absolutely. It's an individual signature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Chris?
Thank you. I was a little bit surprised by the tone of the flood of letters today, that the majority of them were pretty short and got to the point and said, you should vote for, I want you to vote for this because it will slow growth on Nantucket. And that might be an admirable goal to slow growth on Nantucket, but is that the primary reason this is being done or proposed?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
I don't remember seeing any letters. Were there any letters that said slow growth?
Yes, several that
Or
we received.
verbatim? Well, I certainly,
I
don't know
looked
about
whether-
slow. I've been very explicit, and I believe that we have to have sustainable growth. And, we have industries that are slowing dramatically. For instance, our scallop fishery. It's a fraction of what it used to be. And that breaks my heart. So this is about sustainable growth.
Okay, thanks.
Joanna?
Hillary, how long do you think this will take to enact?
Well, I just know that if we voted at town meeting and we send it up right away, I guess there's some cycles, that are out of the control. They just sort of, so a little bit depends on like when it gets there, but I think it's going to be 2 years.
Even though the most recent, the housing bill that we sent up is now on how many years? 5?
I don't think there are going to be lobbyists lined up against this article. And there are lobbyists lined up against the housing article. It is
And
really
even though we
controversial.
have, I think there's at least 2 other home rule petitions on this go around, right?
So I think that there's a lot that's made about how much everybody hates home rule petitions. That is not the sense that I got from Bill and Fernandez. We're a home rule state. I think the legislature wants to support its towns. And we've been given this fabulous gift of being able to have this regional planning authority. It really helps the state that we have a regional planning authority, and it's going to help them that it works well. I think it's going to be supported.
Thank you.
Other questions from Finance Committee? There's 6 home rule petitions on the warrant, Joanna. Proposed. Joe?
Hillary, I'm probably asking you to repeat what you said at the last meeting. I'm sorry, I apologize, I wasn't there, but you've gone to an awful lot of trouble. You wrote a very interesting report and have worked very hard on this. My question is, what's wrong with the current planning commission? What isn't working that needs this dramatic a change?
Sorry, you said I've gone through a lot of trouble.
Well, no, just you've done a lot of work personally to create the article. You wrote the report. The letter you wrote to us for today's meeting. I'm just,
yeah.
What got you going? I mean, what doesn't work, and why is this the best solution?
Well, thank you for that question, Joe. I definitely didn't want to do this. Like, Nantucket was so much more fun when I was just there because it was a beautiful place to be, and I love my old house, and I love my old street, and I love my neighbors, and I love the nature. That was much more fun. This is my experience of Nantucket now is a lot less fun. And, I got started with my political activity about 3 years ago now because of a demolition, threat of demolition of our antique street. And I decided, the way most people get interested in political activity locally, I went to some meetings and I just came away like, where are the architectural historians? Like, where are the preservation engineers? I mean, why can't we have our cake and eat it too? Why can't we rehabilitate this street and keep these antique stones? And I just started having a lot of questions, and I just decided I needed to chase them down. I had to chase these questions down. I felt like, my kids, I stepped away from this career. My kids are getting older. I had the time, I was invested. If not me, who would do it? And I started spending more and more time on it. I met amazing people. I loved the town administration people I worked with even. I loved the people on the commissions, all the passion, the commitment. And I just started having a lot of questions about the long-term planning and feeling like, the long-term planning, it's just not happening. I mean, open space plan, 2007, master plan, 2009, municipal harbor plan, 2009, technically expired. There's just there are a lot of issues. And I want Nantucket to be a place that my kids are going to be able to come and, that I can retire, that my kids can come. 10 years ago, you used to be able to walk across Pocomo Point and just have your feet in like a meadow of eelgrass, no more. So I feel like this all comes down to long range planning. It is the critical thing for a healthy, economically robust community. And I think that really it's kind of nobody's fault. I mean, the commission is filled with wonderful people. They care, they work hard, they're smart, but they are crushed under the permitting, the subdivision, and they don't have the option of not responding to that. So the long range planning, it just kind of falls away, and we need to bring it back. So that's my motivation. There was an email in the packet today, saying this has come up, and every time there's an agenda well beyond what one might think. I don't know what that means or what the agenda is that's being discussed with that email, but I have one agenda, which is to keep Nantucket beautiful. And I have a lot of other people that, including I bet every single one on two screens here on the computer, everybody feels the same way. So let's do it.
Can I paraphrase your response in saying that you feel that no, I'm sorry. I was listening to what you said.
I'm sorry. I know I'm long-winded.
No. And basically you feel that the planning commission is currently constituted, that long-range planning is getting short shrift, that it is not a sufficient part of their work to help the island, help protect the island from some of the issues that I probably agree with you, most of them. And that from a governance standpoint, you think it makes some sense to kind of separate the planning board and kind of have a different complement of people, or at least a more separate complement of people on both bodies. And then obviously you want to elect 3 of the people to the planning commission that aren't currently elected. So is that a fairly brief?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add is that the thing about this article is that this is a vote for democracy. This is going to make the planning commission more inclusive. It's going to let people elect representatives directly to the planning commission for the first time ever. And it's going to be a more inclusive commission. But other than that, like, we're going to get the government we deserve. So, so that's what I'm doing that. And one other thing is that I've had most people I've talked to agree with me. I've talked to the Rotary, I've talked to the Town Association of the Civic League. I've talked to lots of people, they all like it. There are more than 60 signers. I've talked to a couple of people who don't like it. And, there's this question, like I've gotten this question, like, who are you? Who are you to do this? And honestly, like we should all be doing this. If we have a pure democracy on Nantucket, we have open government. It's amazing. You can learn anything you want. It's an open book if you're willing to put in the time. And if, I'm a property owner, I'm deeply invested, I'm a voter. And, in all of these things that I'm proposing, I've heard like, well, it's not legal or it's not appropriate or it's not the way we do things. Who are you? And I don't want to listen to that. And I hope you won't either.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands from Finance Committee, so I'm going to go to members. I'll open it for public comment for members of the public. We are getting close to 6 o'clock, so Hillary, I am going to encourage you to be way briefer in your comments in the future. Get to the point, okay? So, because the background is interesting, we heard it the first time, and I think this time it's important that I realize you want to explain things so that we can understand them, and I would really appreciate it if you could keep it to a minute or two in terms of your response, if there's
Sure.
questions for you.
Will do.
Thank you. Linda, I'll start with you. Your hand was up first.
I don't even know where to start, frankly. I'll just take one right off the top. We spoke to Dylan. Dylan did not support this article. So let's just leave it there. He did not, he said he did not. I spoke to liaison today. They do not support it or not support it. Whatever gets sent up to Dylan at from town meeting, he obviously has to advocate for, but he does not support this. And she's been asked about that before. As far as the democracy and inclusive, most of the members of the Planning Commission are elected by the people. Democracy, inclusive. The individual boards like the Housing Authority, the Concom, various other boards, elect them among themselves from elected members. Now, when she was asked earlier by Peter whether she spoke to these people, she did not. She made a brief presentation at the Planning Commission. She made a brief presentation, I believe, at the Housing Trust, an entity I started. And that was it. She didn't get support from them. And she never spoke to the Housing Authority, who seems to be all over this mess. The Housing Authority is not, I'm a member of the Housing Authority. It is not in support of this. They chose not to even respond because I had responded earlier. We are an elected board. We even have one member that is appointed by the governor. We don't answer to anybody else. We don't answer to the town. Our budgets are not from the town. We are under state and federal laws, as well as state and federal funding. We don't get anything from the town, except we used to get conveyances from the town of surplus land, which we would then put out to RFP for a housing Nantucket or Habitat, things like that. We do run our units over there, and we did give Sachem's Path land to the entity on the Cape that did Sachem's Path, the 40 units at Sachem's Path. We have no interest in this. Why she's including us and jerking us around and telling us we have to do this or thinking somebody else has the right to appoint us to anything is beyond me. So we'll just look at that part right now. We created the covenant. We own the covenant. I was involved with creating the Housing Trust. And it was thought that having an appointed member from the Housing Authority who's deeply involved with this type of thing, who also started Housing Nantucket as our nonprofit arm, that we should have an elected member on the Planning Commission. We are not appointed by the Housing Trust. The Housing Trust is a political body that is appointed by this Board of Selectmen or Select Board, and then they have us because we're elected as an elected member. So we need to be taken completely out of this equation entirely. We deserve a seat on the Planning and Economic Commission, and this is ridiculous. That, number one. Number two, I was on the bylaw committee when I was on the Planning Commission, and we felt that 12 members were inappropriate. So we went and changed it. We also felt, and there was a lot of sentiment about this, that the DPW or any town employee as a regular voting member, not ex officio, they were a voting member of the Planning Commission, that they should not be an employee of the town. So it wasn't just because of quorums or anything else that she said. It's because it was 12 members, and the member was an employee of the town. As far as the tip funding, we've been getting tip funding for decades, and we had Mike Burns was doing an excellent job of presenting us with the plans and presenting us with an entire document we had to vote on every year, an entire thing for tip funding from the state, and he got us more money than anybody's ever got in this town. He left for a position in Houston, and he's been trying to come back here to take the position over again. There's some snags in that on a personnel level. So this is just ridiculous.
Linda.
He has not spoken to any of us, and I have a big problem with the fact that she's decided, without knowing any of the history of why we did anything, or how the planning commission got there, or anything to do with the housing authority, that all of this was dreamed up. So I'm absolutely, as a former member of the planning commission for 10 years, I'm absolutely opposed to this, and the housing authority wants nothing to do with it, period.
Okay, Linda, thank you. I mean, in the end, I really want the finance committee to be able to have a deliberation tonight. So thank you for your input. And I'm going to move on to Maureen, and then after that, Fritz, and then Emily Molden. And I'm going to ask all of you to be succinct. Thank you. Maureen?
Yes, thank you, Denise. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak to this. As I mentioned in the letter I wrote to you, I am the CONCOM representative on the Planning and Economic Development Commission. This is now almost the end of my third year on that. And the surprise to me has been that we really aren't set up to do long-range planning. We have a lot of expertise from different areas on the island, but to specifically think about the broader things that Hillary has added, like historic preservation and water quality. I mean, all of those things need to be thought of, and the commissions, like my commission, the CONCOM, the planning board, the zoning board, those are all essentially transactional commissions. People come to them with requests, and those groups, vote upon those requests according to, the statutes or rules or what have you. But it's not the job of those groups to, do long-range planning. And when I asked to be on this group, I thought that would be a part of it. But, it's just not set up to do that. And it is a very old structure. And I do think that having a more diverse group of people would be helpful. People who don't just have transactional experience. So I think adding 3 people elected would be a great idea. We need some new thoughts. There's a great deal of this isn't the way we do it. We've always done it differently. And why should we change? And if someone suggests that we make a change, well, that is being insulting to someone. That is, criticizing someone or telling somebody that they're not doing their job if we want to make a change in how things are structured. That's just not true. And I think that we need to be much more open as an island to new ways of doing things, because if we don't do long-range planning right, this island will not exist as the place that we all know and love and live on. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Fritz? The same kind of ground rules, so to try to be brief and also to bring new information to the discussion. Please. Fritz, you're muted. So if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, Fritz. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Fritz McClure. I'm a member of the Planning Board and the NPEDC. But my comments here today are entirely my own, not for or on behalf of the board or the commission. I just want to make sure that's clear because that was mentioned, brought up a minute ago. I support Article 81 for several reasons. First, the planning board functions as a zoning board reviewing applications for zoning relief and subdivision plans. It's not a planning agency, other than as it relates to changes in the zoning bylaw or the zoning map. The NPEDC is a regional planning agency and its purview is much broader. Regional planning agencies were created under state law to ensure coordinated and thoughtful long-range planning for cities and towns. NPEDC could play a much greater role in planning for Nantucket's future growth and economic development. I believe the changes in this article will make the composition of the commission will enhance the role by providing additional voices from the community and other agencies. Not all, and also another issue that was brought up, noted that all 5 members of the planning board are on the commission. I'm a member of the planning board. I'm one of those 5, and I firmly believe there's absolutely no reason that all 5 of us have to sit on the planning commission. Second, I believe that the present practice of having the commission select its at-large members rather than having them elected by voters or appointed by the select board is a bad practice and not good governance. It enhances the probability of self-perpetuation of membership, and it's a closed board. Third, recently the work of the commission has largely been to process requests for the appropriation of state and federal transportation funds. The commission could be much more. And I believe that Article 81 will help expand the role of the commission and the planning for Nantucket's economic well-being. Thank you. I hope you will give Article 81 a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Fritz. Emily Molden? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Emily, before you talk, Peter Schaefer?
Yeah, Fritz, if you feel this way, how long have you been on the committee?
As long as I've been on the planning board.
How long have you been on the planning board?
Almost 4 years, 3.5 years.
Okay, so in that 3.5 years, you had to wait for Hillary to come along with this idea. No one else has brought this up?
I think a lot of people have talked about it. Hillary was the one who did something about it. I don't think the fact that I didn't bring it up doesn't mean, I totally agree with what is being said.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Emily Molden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Molden here for the Nantucket Land Council. I just wanted to add a brief comment of support for this article. I believe that it will build on the existing foundation of the commission and really just provides additional opportunities that can only be of benefit to the community. The proposed revisions to the mission encourages the commission to expand their role and engage in more comprehensive planning for the island, as has been discussed, which I absolutely agree needs to be a priority for our community and our island. And the proposals in this article, I think, will support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Matt?
Why don't you ask her how many months a year she's here?
Yeah, thank you.
Doesn't matter. She's not on it.
I'm not going to repeat what others have said. I support this as well. I think you all know me, I don't like change as much as anybody. But this, I got involved with town politics originally, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I was part of the comprehensive plan. We had 350 people involved with long range planning, did a ton of good work. And then it was somewhat shelved. And so that's when I became, I ran for select board and, have been trying to change it from the inside for a while. Had, some success, some not success. I do think I agree with Fritz that the MPDC has morphed over time into a sort of a transportation committee. And there wasn't really much else going there. To Peter's point, I made suggestions to that board. We should pick one section. We should work on one thing a month. and it just never happened. There was no willingness to do that. Part of that is no one's fault. Everyone is really busy, etc. And we just didn't get to it. But some of the things that we worked on back in the comp plan days that, you know, some of us were worried about are coming to fruition. The harbor is what it is. There's no housing. The town can't hire. Businesses can't hire. Things that we identified and brought, you know, people from Aspen and other places to help us and ended up on a to-do list really never got done, you know? And so I think that some change has to happen. I think I give Hillary credit. She is extremely intelligent. She's dogged and persistent, and she, you know, and she is thorough. You know, she has looked through this and, you know, and come up with some things that I wish I had thought of. And I think that we need to take, a lot of times, I think too often we make things personal that aren't personal. And I think we should judge this on the merits of what we have in front of us, not on the personalities and not how long someone has been here or not been here, or, you know, who their friends are. One of the comments earlier was, you know, don't tell us what to do. Well, we need a planning commission that works with all these various entities so that we work together to figure out a common vision on what to do. And so I hope that, you know, that you will be open-minded and put a positive recommendation or a, you know, or at least some sort of study it, or just don't just throw this, you know, out because. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Hillary.
Thanks. I see Linda has her hand up, so can we just hear whatever else she has to say, and then maybe I can make a few very, very brief closing remarks.
Thank you for the briefness, Hillary. Linda, when you refer to the person who's doing the article, you can call her Hillary. We all know that's who you mean, so it's fine. Thanks, Linda.
Not fine for me.
Linda?
Everybody sitting around here, the proponents of this, saying that the planning board and the planning commission have done nothing. We've done bike paths all over the place. We've done road improvements. We've gotten TIP funding. We've set out plans for future road improvements and transportation improvements. They promoted the NRTA. They've done area plans, because I've written 3 or 4 of them myself as a member of the planning commission. We've done the planning board has done the master plan. I was also on the comp plan. I was also on the harbor plan. That's done. The comp plan lasted for a while, and then we converted over to the master plan. The master plan is rewritten every 10 years under the state. That's their requirement. Because of COVID, it got kind of delayed there for a while. So they're in the process of updating the master plan now. A lot of the tenants in the master plan have been reached. So now the master plan is being rewritten to address today's issues and what might happen in the future. So we've got all these plans that have been approved, and we've done all these bike paths, and we've done all these other wonderful things. So we're not sitting around doing nothing, not planning anything. So, and again, the housing authority wants out of this bylaw, or whatever this is, this home rule petition. We want out. We want to maintain our position. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund has no jurisdiction over appointing us to anything, not even dog catcher. The Housing Authority is an entity unto itself under state and federal laws, as I mentioned earlier. We don't want to be removed from, we have a very active member. We don't want to be removed from the Planning Commission. She has no right to take, Hillary has no right to take us out. And again, she never spoke to us, never got our buy-in. We never had the opportunity to discuss all the reasons why she doesn't have any right to include us. So that's my soapbox for today.
Thank you, Linda. Stephen, you had your hand up.
I did. I just wanted to make the point about the master plan being a product of the planning board and not the commission. But Linda did that for me.
Okay, look at that. You mind meld with Linda. Thank you. Rick Atherton.
That is a scary thought, Madam Chairman.
Yes, thank you for recognizing me.
do want to go on the record as supporting the article. I specifically like the changes in the charter that help set a tone that I think is important for our community. The current charter is, I think, much too limiting. And such issues as sustainability are critical to our island. We have a lot of important issues, which you're all familiar with, that need a lot of support. And I think broadening the participation in the NP&EDC membership benefits the island-wide community. This is a regional planning community. And to the extent it can seek representation from the community directly by election is a benefit. Otherwise, I think once any committee, and I know another person commented on this, is appointing its own members, I think that's not a good way to do business. And that alone would be enough to change this article. So I support it. And I do hope the FinCom will have an open mind and consider the positives that this could bring to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Seeing no other hands, Hillary, I will turn it over to you. You're muted, Hillary. You are
Sorry,
brief.
I'm not going to keep it that brief. I will unmute myself. Thank you for listening. I appreciate all of the different remarks. I just want to address one thing. What I believe I said was that when I spoke with Dylan Fernandez, he said, if Nantucket Town Meeting supports this and sends it to us, we will do our best to support it in the legislature. Okay. And regarding housing, yes, Jill, you had asked about that at the beginning, but I didn't quite get to it. So very briefly, I will say I've spoken with the housing administrator, manager, director, the housing director. I presented at the Affordable Housing Trust meeting. I spoke back and forth through that public forum with Penny Dye of the Housing Authority, who is their appointee to the trust. I've spoken on the phone with Renee Seeley, the administrator of the Housing Authority, and I have made it very clear in writing that I'm opening up this discussion because the Affordable Housing Trust is the group that everybody would look to and recognize as responsible for the housing production plan and as most active in planning for housing. I don't think anybody could dispute that. It's not anything against the Housing Authority. They just do different things, and the trust did not exist, of course, in 1973. So I have made it clear that if they want to make an amendment or they want to go back to the way it was, it's not, I recommend this change because I believe in it, but I really want whatever housing as a group wants. I've asked them to propose an amendment. I was hopeful if they wanted an amendment that they would give it to me, by last Friday so I could send it to you, but I have not received an amendment. So I imagine they might still be working on it, or you know what, maybe they don't agree. So I really do want whatever housing as a group wants. So I just wanted to address that. And I really hope we can close the discussion. I know you want to deliberate, and I hope for a positive motion. I think this will be great for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Schaefer?
There's one last question, Hillary. Are you registered to vote in Nantucket?
Yes, I'm a registered Nantucket voter.
How long do you live here normally?
I've
full
had
time?
my home with my family on Main Street for 17 years, and my husband's family has been coming since the 1950s.
That's not what I asked. I asked how long you spend on the island.
Oh,
Here.
so I live in Boston and Nantucket, and we have school-age kids. I have a special needs child who's in a special school here. My husband teaches here, so I live in the summer, and we're there over the holidays, in the winter, and when we don't meet on Zoom, I'm there every month leading the commission.
Okay, so you're predominantly in Boston, but you vote in Nantucket.
Yeah, and hopefully, I'll live on Nantucket one day.
That's what I
Time.
do. So.
I'd probably go away in February.
Oh, come on. It's wonderful here in February. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Peter. Okay, Linda, I see your hand, but I'm going to close the public comment at this point. I'll give you 30 seconds.
No letter is forthcoming from the Housing Authority. We don't agree with it. We don't approve it. No letters coming from them. We're
Thank
against
you.
it.
Thank you. 15 seconds, even better. Thanks, Linda. Okay, I'm closing the public comment portion of this, and now it's on to deliberations within the Finance Committee. So,
And just
Chris.
ask a question, Denise. So this is going to be our motion, not the planning department's motion, right?
it's a, yes, it's our motion.
We're not treating this as a zoning type or planning type issue. We're treating this as an issue to be with a motion coming from FinCom.
That's my understanding, Chris. At the end of the day, I could be wrong. I know that planning is going to discuss it next week as, part of their reviewing of all the citizen warrant articles that have some planning dimension to it. But as it's a home rule petition, I'm guessing it's our motion.
Okay, thanks for that. And then I guess I just would like to see the benefit of their discussion before I have a lot more to say on it tonight.
I actually don't, I had a quick conversation about that and felt that seeing as we've now spent the better part of nearly 2 hours on it, that whilst the planning committee might have some interesting points, I was really hoping that we were frankly going to draw a line under this discussion at this point, that we should be able to, that we have enough information. But if you feel that we don't, then of course I will ask the rest of the committee and see what you think. So.
No, I mean, I think it's likely we're going to learn something in that, but if someone wants to make a motion,
I
it'll give vote.
agree with Chris and Denise.
Okay.
I had the same intention as you coming into tonight, that we would be able to make a recommendation, but I don't feel that I'm there. I think that a lot of good points were made tonight, and I want to underscore the message from Matt and also from Rick that and I think we can I think people watching the meeting can understand from the tenor of some of the questions from committee members that maybe this doesn't have majority support, but I think there's a lot of good in the article, and I think that we ought to be thoughtful with what our motion is and what our comment is, no matter what the motion is, and make sure that this isn't the end of something. If this isn't going to get a positive recommendation, that maybe the message can be crafted in such a way that there is further discussion and something comes out of this.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from the Finance Committee?
I'll just make one. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the people who've been talking tonight, every one of you. So please know that if I agree or disagree, it doesn't mean that I don't. But the people who are talking as advocates and proponents, I feel like, these are individuals with a certain, to be frank, agenda. And that makes me a little uncomfortable about the group that is sending us letters, instead of just saying, hey, this is a straight charter change and something good and something that would have come out of maybe the government study committee. It seems like something to come out of there would have given me a little bit more comfort. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm happy to hear from the planning board about it, but so I'm happy to wait, but that's sort of where I am. I feel like it's great to see individual support, but I'm looking for more kind of institutional support. Nantucket is a very old place, as Hillary knows, and I have a lot of respect for that as well. And I'd like to see those institutions support it or not just individual kind of agendas.
Okay, thank you. Joanna? Joe?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the home rule petition thing, and 6 articles on the citizens warrant with regard to home rule petitions. That's a lot. And I think that weighs in here. And I can't quite understand from listening to this conversation if this is like the strategy, like what is the strategy? And is this some kind of a power grab that I'm missing? Right. And I think that, I feel like I could make a vote, but I also feel like there could be more conversation about what the impact of this really means. Although at the same time as I say that, I realize that the impact won't be felt for years, right? You're probably 4 years or 5 years from having this implemented. So is there another way to get benefit from this in the short term? And I'm not really sure I see a detriment, right? I mean, different people can be appointed at different times. There doesn't seem to be a stronghold. So I just don't know.
Thank you, Joanna. Jill?
Well, to Joanna's point, one thing that happened to me last year, I believe, if it wasn't Hillary, it was Kevin Keister maybe who put forward the signs article. And I thought that was very effective. I ended up coming around supporting that. And I just wanted to, say that to Hillary, what you're doing, you are making a difference. You are doing that. I don't know that I agree with it on such a big change to our form of government and how it runs. And that just has a huge implications for a lot of people. This isn't just a simple change on the ballot. This has big implications, I think, for regulations and looking at all areas of what happens on the island. But I did want to make that comment that, you are doing things that have impacted. So I can't just say like, oh, nothing's happening. Things are happening. And that was a good example of last year.
Thank you, Jill. Joe, were you going to say something?
Only that I appreciated the discussion tonight. I was very impressed with Hillary's comments and descriptions of why she's done what she's done. And I have to agree a little bit. I agree with what Matt Fee was saying that, when the town finds smart people with something to say and the energy to do it, I think you want to find a way to get them involved and have the benefit of their input. So, yeah, I'd like to hear what the planning board has to say, and we can talk about it some more. I mean, it's unfortunate, Denise, that we've taken a lot of time, but I think it's been good conversation.
Yeah, I think it's been a good and productive conversation. And I was, anticipating that with everything today that we would have had enough information, but fair enough. We can wait to the planning board. That will be February 15th when they come to us with their recommendations for their articles. We'll just add this one to that one. And but I've got a couple observations which I've held off on because I typically like to hold off on things. I look at it similar to what Peter Schaefer talked about, which is there's no reason for this group not to change now. They don't need this article. They don't need this article. They could be doing all the things that you've laid out now. There's no reason that if this is so important, the people who are currently on the committee, you can change from within your behavior, what you do, how you want to do it. I'm sure there's enough latitude in the charter to be able to make some changes. So I would encourage that group, regardless of how this turns out or how this ends up, is to say, let's take the best of what Hillary's talking about and see what we can do without having to make a complete change of the charter. And, because at the end of the day, the goal is to do the right thing for Nantucket in the long term. So if that's the goal, then folks, great, let's do it however, whether it's via this home rule petition over time, or it's the people who are on this call who are on this committee, they turn around and say, well, you know what, I can pick up my crayons and start coloring in a different way. So that's one of the things that I would observe. And then the other thing is the people who are in leadership in this, town, who overlook all these committees, that's an opportunity to say, okay, well, some of these were valid points. Some of them, may not be. And let's see what we can do as it fits in. But I would like to underscore, this group has done so much over the years for this island. So I'll go back to the comment that Stephen made on our first discussion of this, which is, I'm not sure what problem we're solving, because I can't think of an example off the top of my head. And I really don't want somebody to come up with, I've got 20 examples now, let's save that for another time. But I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that says, oh, well, it's all gone to hell in a handbasket because these folks weren't elected. So understand that I'm, always looking forward to how to do things better. I do it personally every day. So it's great that we as a community want to do it. And secondly, I think that there's an opportunity for this committee to adopt, take kind of the best of Hillary's ideas and say, you know what, these are cool. Let's go ahead and start working on some of these, because nothing precludes that from happening now. So it isn't a question of this isn't a light switch issue, right? So that's my kind of my observation. So with that, we were going to go through, I'm going to close this section of the agenda. We will discuss it again on February 15th after we will deliberate again. We won't go probably through the same level of discussion. I don't think we'll need to, with all due respect to everyone who's contributed tonight. But on February 15th, we'll go ahead and discuss this as part of the other recommendations from planning. And Chris, were you just about to say something else?
Just super quickly, I was saying, if you don't want to wait that long, as long as we have access to the deliberations, I wasn't suggesting we needed to wait till they came in with their recommendations, because I think we all would have access to watch their meeting, but that was just.
No, we can just wait. We
Okay,
can just
that's
wait till they come with it. Might as well do it efficiently. I'd rather do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause we've got-
whatever's most efficient from your perspective. Absolutely. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, because we don't forget, we still have to get in budget presentations that we missed because of the Saturday Snowmageddon. So we have pretty action-packed meetings. There's 9 more after this one. So Brian, I think Libby and I texted quickly that we'll probably wait for the finance budget, or unless you want, I mean, it's 6:30.
I can wait, Madam Chair. I'm okay with that.
Okay, good. That would be appropriate. Hillary, thank you very much for your active participation. We look forward to seeing you on the 15th. We know that there's community support for this. We do get the emails. At a certain point, I will stop answering all the emails I get, just as an FYI to anyone who's listening to this, because last year with Land Bank, I think I got about 120 emails, and I will be spending my day answering emails so thank you. We do get them all, and I forward them. Everything I get, I do forward to the Finance Committee. So, and then I give it to Maria, and Maria has the joyous job of posting it. Some might fall through the cracks, but I'd say 95% of everything that we get does get posted. So thank you for everybody's active civic engagement on that topic. Okay, with that, I'm going to skip over committee reports, as you can imagine, and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
May I have a
Second.
Yeah, thank you. And Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
George,
Aye.
thank you. And as always, Maria, Brian, Libby, thank you very much. It's always appreciated, everything you do. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.